Welcome back. My name's Leisha Cash of Whimsy Inc. and this is my circus and these are my monkeys, but I have a cool new science article to tell you about. There's a new method of dating archaeological sites that's really very fascinating, and they're able to narrow it down because of the context of biblical sites, so it's like doubly interesting to me. So let me just dive right in. This is from phys.org. I will include a link down below of a couple different news sites that I got this from. So, geomagnetic fields reveal the truth behind biblical narratives. A joint study by TAU and the Hebrew University involving 20 researchers from different countries and disciplines has accurately dated 21 destruction layers at 17 archaeological sites in Israel by reconstructing the direction and/or intensity of the Earth's magnetic field recorded in burnt remnants. The new data verified the biblical accounts of Egyptian, Armenian, Assyrian, Babylonian military campaigns against the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Findings indicate, for example, that the army of Hazael, king of Armen Damascus, was responsible for the destruction of several cities: Tel Reov, Tel Zayet, and Horvat Tevet, in addition to Gath of the Philistines. And I apologize greatly, I don't know how to pronounce any of these, so I will get better at this, but I'm sorry. I'm incompetent at this, so sorry. Anyway, Gath of the Philistines, whose destruction is noted in the Hebrew Bible. At the same time, the study refutes the prevailing theory that Hazael was the conqueror who destroyed Tel Bethshan. Other geomagnetic findings reveal that cities in the Negev were destroyed by the Edomites, who took advantage of the destruction of Jerusalem and the kingdom of Judah by the Babylonians. The groundbreaking interdisciplinary study was published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences and based on the doctoral thesis of Yoav Vaknin. Again, I apologize greatly. Supervised by Professor Erez Ben Yosef and Professor Oda Lipschitz of Tau Institute of Archaeology and Professor Ron Scher of the Institute of Earth Sciences at the Hebrew University. The researchers explain the geophysics, attempting to understand the mechanisms of the Earth's magnetic field, track changes in this field throughout history. To this end, they use archaeological findings containing magnetic minerals, which, when heated or burned, record the magnetic field at the time of the fire. In a 2020 study, the researchers reconstructed the magnetic field as it was on the 9th of the month of Av 586 BCE, the Hebrew date of the destruction of the first temple and the city of Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar and his Babylonian army. Now using archaeological findings unearthed over several decades at 17 sites throughout Israel, alongside historical information from ancient inscriptions and biblical accounts. Researchers were able to reconstruct the magnetic fields recorded on 21 destruction layers. They used the data to develop a reliable new scientific tool for archaeological dating. Yoav Vankin explains that based on the similarity or differences in intensity and direction of the magnetic field, we can either corroborate or disprove hypotheses claiming that specific sites were burned during the same military campaign. Moreover, we have constructed a variation curve of field intensity over time, which can serve as a scientific dating tool similar to radiocarbon dating method. One example given by the researchers is the destruction of Gath of the Philistines, identified today as Tel Tizavit in the Judean foothills by Hazael, king of Aram Damascus. Various dating methods have placed this event around 830 BCE, but are unable to identify that Hazael was also responsible for the destruction of Tel Reov, Tel Zayet, and Horvat Tevet. Now, the new study identifying full statistical synchronization between the magnetic fields recorded at all 4 sites at the time of the destruction makes a very strong case for their destruction during the same campaign. A destruction level at Tel Beth Shean, on the other hand, recorded a totally different magnetic field, refutes the prevailing hypothesis that it too was destroyed by Hazael. Instead, the magnetic data from Beth Shean indicated that this city, along with two other sites in northern Israel, was probably destroyed 700 to 100 years earlier, a date which corresponded with the military campaign of Egyptian pharaoh Shoshank. His campaign was described in the Hebrew Bible and in an inscription on the wall of the Temple of Ammon in Karnak, Egypt, which mentions Beth Shean as one of his conquests. One of the most interesting findings revealed by the new dating method was to do with the end of the Kingdom of Judah. The last days of the Kingdom of Judah were widely debated. Some researchers relying on archaeological evidence argue that Judea was not completely destroyed by the Babylonians. While Jerusalem and frontier cities in the Judean foothills ceased to exist, other towns in the Negev, the southern Judean mountains, and the southern Judean foothills remained almost unaffected. Now the magnetic results support this hypothesis, indicating that the Babylonians were not solely responsible for Judea's ultimate demise. Several decades after they destroyed Jerusalem and the First Temple, sites in the Negev, which had survived the Babylonian campaign, were destroyed, probably by the Edomites, who took full advantage of the fall of Jerusalem. This betrayal and participation in the destruction of the surviving cities may explain why Hebrew Bible expressed so much hatred for the Edomites. The new Professor Oded Lipschitz added, the new dating tool is unique because it's based on geomagnetic data from the sites, whose exact destruction dates are known from historical sources. By combining precise historical information with advanced archaeological research, we were able to base the magnetic method on reliable anchored chronology. A separate paper presented the scientific principle of the novel archaeomagnetic dating method is in preparation. Professor Ron Scher, who led the geophysics aspect of the study, as well as the development of the geomagnetic dating method, explains, the Earth's magnetic field is critical to our existence. Most people don't realize that without it there would be no life on Earth, since it shields us from cosmic radiation and solar wind. In addition, both humans and animals use it to navigate. The geomagnetic field is generated by the Earth's outer core at a depth of 2,900 kilometers by currents of liquid iron. So every time you burn these magnetic ores, they would melt and then realign their magnetic field based on what the Earth's core metal was doing. And so it would solidify and make a fingerprint basically at that time. And I guess they thought it was fairly consistent in the ranges of magnetic changes. They thought it was like a smooth curve, but it really could spike and change rather chaotically. I should just read on. Due to the chaotic motion of this iron, the magnetic field changes over time. Until recently, scientists believed that it remained quite stable for decades. But archaeomagnetic research has contradicted this assumption by revealing some extreme and unpredictable changes in antiquity. Our location here in Israel is uniquely conducive to archaeomagnetic research due to the abundance of well-dated archaeological findings. Over the past decade, we have reconstructed magnetic fields recorded by hundreds of archaeological items. By combining this data set with the data from Yoav's investigation of historical destruction layers, we are able to form a continuous variation curve showing rapid, sharp changes in the geomagnetic field. This is wonderful news, both for archaeologists who can now use geomagnetic data to determine the age of ancient materials, and for geophysics studying the Earth's core. Now, one of the things that I read in another article, the geomagnetic data is only going to be applicable for a certain area. So this is what they've studied. They've studied mainly the Middle East through Israel and Syria and in that area. Now, I'm not sure if it's going to be the same. I don't think it's going to be the same geomagnetic data if you were looking at a site in China versus a site in Israel at the same time period. You would have to make different plots and what am I looking for? You would need a different variation curve depending on where you were in the world, but you could have this general area would be very similar. So dating material within that area is going to be a lot easier. You're going to be able to look at ceramics and other material like that, be able to date it better, or at least be able to date it two ways. If you can do the geomagnetic as well as the carbon dating, then you have a backup and a way to double ensure that your dating is right. Whenever you're doing any sort of scientific study, if you can come to the same conclusion from a different direction, then you are more certain that that conclusion is correct. So if you have multiple ways of dating an object, then you're more certain that you are having the correct date. And that is always a good thing. It's always nice to have two ways of certifying or verifying what you think is correct. So anyway, I thought this was very interesting. This is Yoav Vankin, who did, I think this was his thesis that went through this, and it was very, I'll include both articles, but it's just simply a fascinating study, and it's an interesting methodology as well, and I think it's going to be really helpful going forward in different sites. You're definitely going to have an anchor point in order to use this data. So you need to have some sort of historical records that you can go back to and be like, I know this happened at this time. So we have an anchor point, and then we can build out from there. But it's fascinating. I think it's just so cool. I love the metallurgy aspect to it, because that's what I am. I'm a metallurgist. I love it. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know if you like this sort of thing, and if you want me to do multiple articles and like time lengths. I'm not sure. I'm trying to keep it under 10 minutes, but if you want multiple articles and a longer format, I can do that as well. So just leave me some comments down below if you like this sort of thing or not. Again, please like, comment, subscribe, and I will talk to you later. Have a good evening.